guys, Lyda Garcia here, Extension Meat Specialist at The Ohio State University. Today we chose to talk about beef chuck. Now what can we do with the beef chuck? Well, a beef chuck is a less expensive beef cut that we find it in our grocery stores, but did you know that we could use a beef chuck for a poor man's burnt ends? The second option for pulled beef, for those nice, juicy, enjoyable sliders. Here in front of me, I have a total of a 4-pound chuck roast that I actually cut in half. So they're both equal parts, roughly equal parts of 2 pounds each. My intent today is going to show you how we can season them differently. One's going to be more savory and the other one's going to be a bit sweeter, more on that barbecue end. All right, so there we have our Texas style barbecue rub. Again, coarse salt, coarse pepper, a little bit of granulated garlic, and some dehydrated onions. Next, I'm going to start working on my sweeter type chuck roast. Again, I'm going to start with the base layer of nothing more than salt, pepper, garlic, onion. Okay, so now that we've waited about 12-15 minutes, if you take notice, you'll notice that the two chuck roasts actually seem a little bit darker, at least with the coarser rub that we've used. It does look a bit darker versus the one where we use some very fine salt, fine pepper. This is what I'm referring to as when the meat sweats. As the salt is getting absorbed into the actual meat product, water is coming to the surface. And so now at this point, I'm going to take advantage of this moisture on the meat and I'm going to add my favorite barbecue rub. And then don't forget to take care of those edges. All right, I think we are good. Now the next thing that we're going to do is now we're going to check our fire. Now what I've chosen to use today is a Weber kettle. Now with the kettle you can actually grill or you can actually smoke as well. So follow me over here. What I have set up here is a direct and an indirect section. The idea here, since we want to cook long and slow, I want to put it in the indirect side. And so 300 degrees is where roughly I want to aim for, simply because I know that this side of the grill or the kettle is going to be hotter than this side. So if this side is about 300, at least just understanding how my equipment works, this side's going to run about 290, 285 more or less, which is still very acceptable in the smoking range. And so now that I've gotten my temperature regulated, I'm going to add a few chunks of oak wood. Now that's just to add a little kiss of smoke flavor to the product, but you can use whatever you like. Hickory, mesquite, pecan, all works well with beef. I've already placed the 2 chuck roasts on the grill. So what I've also done is I've also inserted a thermometer in the thicker chuck roast than the thinner. All right guys, well now we've just reached an internal temperature of 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Now it's time to wrap. What I'm using here today is just peach butcher paper. I actually prefer butcher paper when I'm working with chuck roasts, as in this case for burnt ends or even a brisket. Now if you don't have butcher paper or peach butcher paper, you can actually use foil. All right, so now we're ready to put this back up on the grill. All right guys, now that we've got our chuck roast ready, hitting that one internal temperature of 195 degrees Fahrenheit, I let them sit for about 5-6 minutes, allowing that temperature to rise, you know, hitting that or reaching that 200 degree Fahrenheit internal temperature. The main thing here is remember that connective tissue begins to break down at 160 degrees and is completely broken down by 200 degrees. And so that's what we want to assure when we're cooking a piece of meat that is considered to be locomotive, such as a chuck roast. So the next thing I'm going to do is just come in and cut about, I would say, some cubes that are about 1 by 1 in width and in length. So just coming in, going to cut some cubes, trying to get it as even as possible. If it doesn't, well, you know what, that's really okay. Look at that nice smoke ring that we see around this. Again, that has a lot to do with the smoke, the moisture in that kettle as well. And so what I'm going to do next, and this is totally optional, what I'm going to do next is take these cubes and I'm going to put them in a pan. And just like so, just place them in that pan. And because I want this to be more of a savory product, I don't want too much sweet, I've gone ahead and already mixed about half a cup, 3/4 cups of beef broth, and I added about roughly half a cup of my favorite barbecue sauce. Again, you use what you'd like, and just take this, mix it up really well, and then just pour it over the cubes. And then place it back in your smoker, in your kettle, whatever you have. Let's cover it up. Let me take some of these gloves off just to assure I don't get everything dirty. Take this here, at least because that beef broth is going to help break it down even further to make it more tender. And so all I'm going to do here is take this, cover it up, making it nice and tight here along the edge. And then we're going to place this back on the fire for about 30 minutes. Now for this one in particular, just to show you a different cut or just a different option when we're talking about tailgating, you can actually come in here and you can just start shredding. You know, this is a really good piece of meat for some pulled beef sandwiches. You really can't go wrong. Oh, look at that nice smoke ring. Oh, that's really nice. Just take your hand, or if you have those nice claws that we see online, come in and just start shredding. I have some cotton gloves underneath these blue gloves here just to help me with the heat. But once we're done, what I'll do is come in and add a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more of that base seasoning, that all-purpose seasoning that I showed you first, and then I'll take my favorite barbecue rub that you see to my right, and I'll sprinkle it, I'll hit it just with a little bit more.
For more grilling tips and tricks for your tailgating season, visit ohiobeef.org.